G'day and welcome to Does It Matter? Um, Humans are creatures of habit. The way that the very fluid synapses in our brains form synaptic patterns and complicated engrammic patterns are based upon their ability to react to the environment, to adapt to given circumstances, to react to people, to pursue and notice environmental features, people's habits, our own internal meanderings, to have a picture, hopefully an accurate picture, of all those things, and then to be able to make good sound decisions that keep us from being eaten, keep us from dying, keep us from getting sick or poisoning ourselves or falling over or getting killed by the wrong tribe or such and such. The many, many ways there were to die. And there's still a few left. So our brains are really good at making habits. Really good. They had to be, because that's how we stayed alive for hundreds of thousands of years. What I find peculiar about modern people, and when I say modern people, I say Gen Ys onwards, okay? Up to Gen X, we had somewhat of a handle on it, even though we were living in reasonably affluent times. But from sort of Gen Y onwards, millennials onwards, no, 100%. There seems to be a disconnect from an understanding of how we work internally. Pardon me. If I drink a lot for 20 years of my life, from 18 to 38, I consume copious amounts of alcohol on a regular basis. Let's forget the physical consequences. Let's assume I don't get any. I'm a genetic freak and I don't have any physical consequences. I don't get fat. I don't get fatty liver and cirrhosis. I don't get any of those things. I don't have any horrible catastrophes. But I decide at 38 that I probably should stop before I do get those consequences. Some people are lucky with the genetic sweepstakes and they don't get sick before then. Most people do. So I decide 38, I'm not going to drink anymore. Statistically, the chances of that person no longer drinking heavily is less than 20%. The chances of that person teetotaling entirely and giving up the source entirely because they think that they find out that they can't actually manage it moderately is even lower. Less than 20%. You've got a better than 80% chance of failure. If I do the same thing with food and I eat too much and I become obese, and I'm obese for 5 to 10 years, not even 20 now, 5 to 10 years, and I'm obese for up to 10 years, I now have an 80% chance, roughly, of never being able to get off that weight permanently again. I will fluctuate, but I will return to that weight, and often worse, anytime. If I'm obese for 15 to 20 years, which a lot of people are, especially nowadays, I have a 5% chance, read it, 5% chance of being able to change that. And is that a physical thing? No, it's not physical. It's not physiological. It's not tied to genes. Some people have it easier than others, yes, but we're all capable of losing weight. We're all capable of being healthy. There's no reason why. There are people I know with Fragile X and all kinds of genetic situations that make their bad backs, like scoliosis of the back and all kinds of horrible things, and they're fit, they're healthy, they're lean. Why? Because they decided they wanted to be and they made the sacrifices necessary to do it. Very, very few excuses in life for not being a healthy human. Most human beings, the vast majority of human beings, are capable of being healthy. So, what is it that stops the drinker and the eater from changing their life? If it's physically possible to simply stop being an alcoholic, if it's simply possible to stop being a foodaholic and start managing yourself properly, then why are most people, over 80% of drinkers and 95% of obese people plus, unable to successfully maintain a healthy weight, maintain a healthy habit in their life? Synapses, habits, associations that are tied into them, the way that our brain works. You see, you can change a habit, But the longer the habit forms in your brain, it sits in your brain, and the longer it's reinforced over and over again, and it's connected to your self-image, after a while you begin to identify with the fat person. You identify with the happy-go-lucky party guy, party girl who drinks heavily. You associate joy with food, you associate joy with alcohol, and you cannot stop doing that just like that. You can't. No one can do that. And it requires enormous discipline, not motivation. Fuck motivation, that's bullshit. It requires discipline to stop that, to break that habit. And sometimes you need to break that habit for years, not even months, but years, in order to seriously change the brain. The brain and the body reach a homeostatic response. Your brain develops a self-identity that it really does rely on. Your body reaches a homeostatic response where it's somewhat comfortable. It's decided that's where the resting point, the benchmark is. To change that takes years, months to years. On average, change a physiological homeostatic response, 2 years. On average, to break a really severe habit, 1 to 2 years. Now, are there variations? Yes. Okay, but I don't believe in running by the exceptions. If 10 to 20% of people can do it, we don't care about them. We care about most of us. You can't change habits that easily. And the longer they're inset in you, the less likely they are to be broken. Because the discipline you need to break them, you didn't have to begin with. The discipline that's required to break the heavy drinking and the heavy food habits, you don't have it anyway. You've never developed it. It's not there. Now, there are exceptions. People are exceptionally disciplined in a very, very narrow slice of their life, and the rest of their life is a hedonistic mess. We all know people like that. Very successful often, but they're enormously fat, or they drink copious amounts and suffer the ailments of it as a result. Everything is habit, neurological structures that you grew through endless repetition. And if you're going to change it, please change it as early as possible. And if you're going to change it late and you want to be part of the percentage, the very small percentage that succeed, no motivation. You can use that to help you get moving tactically in any given moment. But what's going to get you through this and past the finish post is discipline, the ability to do what you don't want to do, to grow that midbrain cingulate that only grows through forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do in as many areas as possible too. You've got to grow your brain, literally grow a part of your brain and grow new synapses that go, oh no, I don't eat too much now. I enjoy eating healthily. I enjoy not drinking and having hangovers. I enjoy being just myself and not having to put on an adulterated version of myself pumped up with the euphoria of alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, whatever your poison is. The same goes for needing people's approval, okay? Validation. The more validation you need from, I think that's actually become one of the new drugs, along with food and alcohol and drugs, is validation. People need validation. Women in particular have been absolutely slain by it. If you think that you can spend from 18 or younger to 35 seeking the validation of people, and then somehow in your 30s you're going to suddenly switch and only require the validation of one person in your life, and this goes for men too, it's just that women are more vulnerable to it for a variety of psychological reasons which are well understood in the literature. If you want to look it up, Google Scholar, not just Google Scholar, and go to peer-reviewed articles, okay? There's loads and loads on the various types of psychological leanings that both men and women have, women towards neurosis, men towards psychosis, many more. And once you go there, it's a rabbit hole of endless interest in discovering what we are, finding out what a human being is. not just your veneer of personality, but what you are underneath all that. Millions of years of evolution. It's wonderful. So women are more vulnerable to this, but it affects men too. This need to be validated, it's a poison. It's as bad as obesity, it's as bad as drinking and drugs, easily as bad, and it's secured through one of these things that I'm filming into now. It's secured through the internet, through the social media. It's a way of that little feeling, that little ting when you get a like on a post, or you get a like on something, on a video you made, or a picture you put up, and that's a nice thing. We're meant to respond that way. We're a pro-social species, but it hijacks it. It hijacks it big time. Social media is dangerous because it gives you lots and lots of really easy and unearned validation. Just put up a good picture of yourself, not the fugly one, okay, from 1 o'clock in the morning like I am now, or 6 in the morning when you've just woken up, the perfectly coiffured one under the perfect lighting with you looking fantastic after a workout or something like that, or in your best clothes, ready to go out. That's a false narrative. It's a nice narrative. We all understand that it exists, but it's a false narrative. It's not real. And what social media does en masse is it fills us with snapshots of other people's lives, projecting a false narrative. Really, honestly, a bullshit narrative. It doesn't exist. People do not post their fails very often. Okay? And when they do post their fails, they're the most ginormous, catastrophic fails, because the internet is, again, social media is extremes. Anything that will attract clicks and heat is what they'll post. So the very worst and the very best, and most of life is in between. So this false narrative it hijacks our validation, so pro-social validation needs. It hijacks it big time. And so social media is really, really dangerous. Getting validation sexually is really, really dangerous. It's less dangerous for men because we're technically, from an evolutionary point of view, we're supposed to spread our seed. We're supposed to try as hard as we can to get as many females as we can for the chance that we might get to have kids. We might get to have an enduring legacy. And when you look at the DNA, 80%, almost 80% of DNA is female, which means basically 40 to 50% of men never lived or never got to breed. They either died before they could, they got killed, or they just weren't allowed to breed. They were kept at the bottom of the pile, never allowed to breed. So only a small percentage of men, only half at the most, ever got to have a child. And out of that lot, 20% had most of the kids. So very clearly there was a status orientation throughout history, and men have had to fight really hard, try really hard, just to have a chance to procreate, to have children, to have a girl. It wasn't always easy. And so men are designed, as a result, to be quite aggressive in going out and spreading their seed. They're meant to keep trying. They're meant to be persistent. And the risks for them are far less than they are for women. The risk of procreation for them is little. It's like, shoot your load and move on. Hopefully someone likes you along the way and then you get to have a family, blah, blah, blah. If not, well, at least there might be some kids out there somewhere that are yours. The reality is that for women, that's a risk. They catch STDs far more easily than men. They get pregnant. They're already in more danger in the environment than men are. They're much less capable of surviving the rigors of nature than men are. And anyone who wants to argue about that with me is more than welcome to leave a comment and we can have a chat about that. I'm going to post a video on that at some point anyway. I've done a couple before. Time to get a refresher on that. But no, nature's dangerous enough for men. It's even more dangerous for women. And because they're more important than us from an evolutionary point of view, because they carry life and they nurture and bring that, they can feed that life out of their own body. That's astonishing, right? Then it was our job to look after them and provide for them, make sure they were safe. So we have different We're affected by different things in that respect. Women needed validation because if they didn't have validation, they were exiled, they were dead, they were out in the bush with a baby alone. That's literally what happened. All right? If no one wants to look after you and food's scarce, and it often was, and there's dangers, you'll be cast out. You'll be cast out. The term cast out is in every culture on every planet. Well, not on every planet, in every culture on the planet. Every culture has that term, cast out, exile. They all have it because that was really common. You were left behind. No one's going to look after you and your kid if they already have their own. If you've lost your husband, it was a dangerous time for you to find another one quick. You needed protection. You needed provision. So women had to be much more careful and conservative on their choices. And their brains evolved to be careful, strategic, tactical about their sexual choices. Men, not so much. We were designed to go for as many options as we could and see if we could land one, because many of us, 50% of us, as many as 50%, never landed one. That was it. Died virgins in most cases. So when it comes to the sexual validation and promiscuity, men can weather that a lot better because of their evolutionary heritage. It's still a habit that I have seen personally working in clubs and nightclubs and the hospitality. I've seen men struggle with, because when you've had sex with hundreds of women, and some of the guys I work with have, it's really hard to kick that. Really hard to kick that. And I knew a couple that couldn't. But the vast majority were quite happy when they loved someone to settle down. My observation of women, not the same at all. Most of the women I know who've slept with lots and lots and lots of men have suffered a lot of trauma